On Friday, we saw Jacob Fatu absolutely decimate Roman Reigns as Bloodline 2000 stood tall. And then on Monday Night Raw, we saw the Judgment Day 2000 lay out Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest. But neither of them made a really funny face like Roman Reigns did. So
yeah, that is a shame.
-5-star segment, unfortunately, this week. But we'll talk about it in full anyway. I'm Lico and DAD. This is the Professor, the Truth, Dan Layton, and welcome to the WrestleTalk podcast review of Monday Night Raw. And it said Monday Night War there. Please do press the thumbs up button. Give us a subscribe. Leave a comment down below with what you thought of this episode of Monday Night Raw. And if you're watching us live, do join the live conversation. Join our SWAF Nation and get your thoughts on the show. And if you want them read out on the air, WrestleTalk.com/support is the link to click. While you're in the mood for clicking links, if you could, I'd really appreciate it if you could click the video for my Alien 5 cutscene video that I did, because it hasn't fallen into the YouTube algorithm, and therefore the views for it are really quite bad, and I need it to fall into the algorithm because that's the only way that it can find views. So please, really would appreciate it if you could click it and help me out.
It is good.
Thank you.
The thing. It's good. It's a good.
I'm very pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah.
But it's just YouTube decided to not give it to anyone. So
It do be like that.
it does be like that, doesn't it? And Raw be like this sometimes. Which, just before we came on air, we were kind of giving it some overall thoughts of what we thought on the show. And I was like, I said this in my edited review, a very missable episode of Monday Night Raw. Nothing really major to talk about on here. Sort of the show that when it ended, I'm like, ooh, I wonder what our lead topic is going to be.
Sometimes it's the way where certain shows are like, oh, you have to watch this. Or there's been an angle the week before where you can't miss it. And then some shows, it is one of those where it's like, this is 52 weeks a year, isn't it? Like, we are putting out these shows. And like I said last week, I think the bar is considerably higher for what we consider to be a missable show than it used to be.
Absolutely is.
But it still was one where, did we see any like major plot developments? No, but we did see a sort of continuation.
That's it.
Of various things going down.
And I think the only time what sort of highlighted it feeling like it was a missable show or a skippable show this week was kind of the two big advertised segments that they had for this, which was Randy Orton will appear and CM Punk will appear. And both of them basically said in their promos, nothing new.
Right.
And you're sort of at the end of it, you're like, we got a
a confirmation of one thing from it, but we kind of perceived that was going to be the case last week. So,
but I mean, like even just in them, but that's two lines in a whole talking segment where I was watching CM Punk and Drew McIntyre just say the same things to each other they've been saying since February.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, oh, I don't think we actually. You're right.
I just thought it was lipstick on my mug, but I couldn't find my Kathy mug upstairs.
Has someone nabbed it?
Well, what happens is they get washed and then they go about and then it'll be like several weeks before we find it again. And I really enjoy the idea that someone else in this building is drinking from a mug that slowly reveals Kathy Kelly, and they probably don't know who that is. So they're just drinking from a mug with a random woman on it.
I was like, who is this angel?
Yeah, well, there you go.
Just magically appeared on my mug.
Who's to say? So in the meantime, I've got this one. But anyway, as you were.
So but I think probably the biggest angle that you could say that was on this show was the angle that I've been kind of talking about for the last couple of weeks that I thought would have happened post SummerSlam, like the week after SummerSlam, to establish this new heel act in New Judgment Day or the Street Trash and which they're not going with now, but this new lineup of the Judgment Day. I thought they'd have done this angle earlier to really establish the dominance of this group and a new force to be reckoned with. What we instead got was 2 weeks of the Terror Twins just laying them out. But then we did get the angle that I've been sort of like, not hoping for, just thought they would do earlier, which is they laid them out and they left them laying. And it didn't make Priest or Rhea Ripley look stupid or anything like that, because they knew that this was coming. They'd advertised earlier in the night. Like, they did a promo earlier in the night, kind of calling them out for Bash of Berlin. Then Dominic and Liv cut a promo where Dominic challenged Damian Priest to a match on Raw. And then we had another backstage segment where Rhea and Priest were being like, look, this is a trap. Like, I'm going to go out there. They're going to jump me, but I think it is worth us going into this trap head on because we get our hands on Dominic Mysterio, and that is kind of what we're after. And so Dominic makes his entrance, he goes down. Damian makes his entrance, and as he predicted was going to happen, he got jumped. When they announced this match, I've written in my notes here, this has DQ written all over it. Can't have a DQ if the match doesn't start.
Egg on your face.
Triple H has got my number. Hey. He may not have any tweets of mine to read, but he does watch my podcast, clearly. And so the Judgment Day attacked Priest while he was making his entrance. He fought them off, beat them all up, and then he got into the ring, and Rhea Ripley got on the other side, so she had cornered Dom as well. They threw Dom to the outside. We're going to put him through the announcer's table. Liv Morgan appeared, and she hit Rhea Ripley with a steel chair. She then started to target the injured shoulder. So she was throwing her into the steps, into the announce table, into the ring post, all on the shoulder, which I thought was a nice little touch. And then in the ring, the rest of the Judgment Day beat up Damian Priest, hit him with the coup de grace, hit him with the frog splash, and then they sort of like piled their bodies on top of each other, and they posed. And I'm like, good. This is kind of what this group needed. They needed a little bit of establishing that they are a legit threat and not just spooky jobbers.
And they know what they're doing. They can do the strength in numbers thing. I think there's something about... For me, I don't really mind this because I feel like they made enough of their statement by costing Damian Priest the world title and costing Rhea Ripley the world title on SummerSlam. So that's really that first show of dominance turn angle for me. And if Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley had gone headlong into it and I mean, I suppose you could have done it the other way around where they're so clouded by their fury that their numbers game catches up with them. And then at this point is when they get the one up on them. I think you've got two potential options of doing it. If we'd have done that, we wouldn't have got what we got that first week, which was so electric.
You just got a different week instead.
Exactly. So I feel like this was nothing to write home about, but also good.
Well, that's it. Yeah, like, and I don't really have much more to say on this segment, but it is, again, looking at the YouTube, which I find actually interesting, looking at the YouTube metrics for WWE and actually looking at our metrics for Raw reviews. And I kind of, always look around to see, hey, what's everyone else doing with sort of like their Raw review numbers? Everyone's Raw review numbers were down about sort of 20 to 30% from the post SummerSlam week. And I think it was a reflection of last week's show didn't really have a lot to talk about. We kind of came out last week's show being like, yeah, it was a fine episode of Monday Night Raw. And I think we're going to see the same thing again here for this week, which is, it's a fine episode of Monday Night Raw. But when you do podcasts like this, no one's actually then actively searching out to hear your thoughts on a very fine episode of Monday Night Raw where there's no big angles to talk about. But the angles that they do are effective. And I think this was an effective angle. People think that I've been really down on this, and I'm not. I was surprised that they didn't do the heat angle early to build up the babyface fire comeback. They just did it in a different order. That's not a wrong order to do it in. It has been effective in the order they have done it. I was just surprised they didn't do it the other way around. Perhaps I shouldn't have been. Perhaps that's more on me than it is on them. But I think that the order they have done it in has worked because it's gotten us to this point. I thought this was an effective angle. And I think that it's kind of established this new Judgment Day.
I also think it's kind of interesting, especially when you talk about the numbers. I think that's a really fascinating conversation because where in the past it was a sort of psychopath booking a show for himself, forgetting what he'd done the week before, and it was also chaotic and left and right, and who knows what we're going to talk about, and thing bad and all the rest of it. Now what we've got is there's been a lot of conversations because the Acolyte has been cancelled today. The Star Wars show.
Oh, the Star Wars show, yeah.
Which I haven't seen, but I've seen a lot of people responding to the fact that it got one season and out, and actually that is kind of the television way at the moment.
Kind of it is, yeah. Although I've only watched the first episode, and I was like, do you know what? I just don't think I'm a Star Wars guy anymore. Like that used to be like a huge part of my personality, that I was a Star Wars guy. And then I was like, I don't think I've actually enjoyed Star Wars content since 1997. Like that was probably the last time I was really like, when they did the re-releases of the original trilogy, and I was like, man, I'm massively into Star Wars here. With that said, I did like Andor.
Well, I mean, but this is the thing, is there's always a bit here and there that people are going to like. I know people really like The Mandalorian.
Oh, actually, no, I did like the second series of The Mandalorian.
There you go.
Really fun.
So, like, but my point of
bringing the third series was garbage.
My point of bringing it up was that there are whole conversations online today about TV and the state of TV, and how in the past a show like a Parks and Rec or a show like The Office or a show like whatever would not necessarily get past a first season anymore, because how many times have you gone and watched a classic series, and I'm sitting down to watch the first season of Parks and Rec, and I'm like, this is a mess. I don't really know what this is.
Start with season 2.
And that's what you get told a lot.
I had the same thing with the US Office.
Right.
I could not watch those first season episodes of the US Office where they were just redos of the UK one.
And that's a special circumstance because the UK one is so well known in our
But it
culture.
was so bad.
Right.
That I was like, I can't watch this. And then a friend of mine who was like so into the show was like, don't watch those. Just start with series 2 because that's when it becomes its own show.
When the show has time to figure out what it is and goes for it. The reason I'm sort of bringing this up and trying to draw a parallel to the WWE is that a lot of those shows did have your kind of, this is what this week is on the show. I remember the second season of Lost, the first 4 episodes are the same hour from different perspectives, so it took you 4 weeks to get there. But like in the way we currently consume media, the attention deficit is not there. It's a really interesting conversation to have about how shows are greenlit, how shows are made. This is the last of a kind of weekly episodic sports entertainment show that is in its new era, where it's being treated and written like by someone with logic and consistency and a plan.
Bit of foresight.
What that does is give us a better show overall, a better entertainment product. But also that inherently brings with it less of the sort of chaotic, where are we going, what's going, this has been cancelled, this has been brought back.
You can't do that thing every week.
Yeah, and so when we get a segment like this, it's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Did the job.
It's absolutely, that's what it is.
There's so little to write home about with it. And actually, when this version of WWE is good, my face melts, right? Which is so different to when previously it was good, I'd be relieved.
Be surprised.
Yeah. So like the highs are so high that the fairly highs feel a bit mid. And it's just really interesting.
I find it fascinating as well, because I think we are, as wrestling fans, I don't think this is just like a wrestling fans thing, because you pointed out there, it kind of ties into all forms of media. But this sort of quick content, you know, speaking of cutscene, there's a comment left on my first video that I did about Toy Story 2. I say my first video, but like the first video of us bringing it back, which was like, another half an hour YouTube video, which could have been done in under a minute. Because what they're looking for is not context. They're just looking for bullet points. They're looking for a YouTube short. Which is why, you know, I did one of well, F off to YouTube shorts then. Like, F off to TikTok. I don't want you here. I'm kidding, of course. But that is kind of what people want from their content. They want it now, and they want it fast. And I think with wrestling, it's like, if you're not doing hot angles every week, then the TV show's boring. I think that's where AEW is sort of finding a lot of this negativity around the show anymore, is that they're not doing, it's not a hot show every single week, so it's like in the mud, like it's a dying product. Absolutely. But ignoring the fact that its ratings are really strong in comparison to, you know, the cord cutting that's going on in America. WBD's edict for them was like, if you give me 500,000 views, that's basically 1 million views to me, and they're constantly doing well over that. But people don't look at that. They look at comparison. Because in comparison, they're looking at being like, well, it's not doing the numbers that TNA did 20 years ago. It's not doing the numbers that ECW did 15 years ago when it was bought by WWE, and it's like in 2006 and stuff. So people looking at it a very different way now. And if you are doing effectively what is a simple and effective storytelling, which is, in week 1, the Terror Twins stood tall. In week 2, they challenged the match and stood tall. In week 3, they walked into a trap and it cost them. And then we get to week 4, and they'll do the go-home angle, and then it's the pay-per-view. That is just a simple way of doing a story, but it is not the hot thing at the start. So if you look at, I brought up WWE's YouTube metrics. If you look at the first week where they did this angle, 1.2 million views. Right. If you look at it from this one, it's 300,000.
Because that one was so electric and had that kind of sense of the Austin of it all, the babyface. But my point is more like, you can't do the same thing every week. Yeah. You can't do that hot angle every single week. You have to do a different variation of it. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with the CM Punk Drew McIntyre stuff. Is this, what they said in the promo on last night's show was good, but I've heard it all before. Also, we're talking about 8 hours or so of television a week. Yeah. In comparison to when, so you said you can't do that every week. I was like, well, they kind of did that in the Attitude Era, where they just would have Austin come down and raise hell. And then I realized, actually, back in that kind of 99, leading into the end of 99, they only had one show. It was 2 hours. Yep. And there was a cycle of top challengers and stars and business. It was the same thing, but it was with different ingredients.
Not only that, but like the way that Vinny Rue would always talk about this is that Vince would
horrible.
Vince would just approach him and be like, "What's Austin doing this week?"
Right,
because that's all he really cared about.
Yeah.
So like the undercard is just what the undercard is, but it's just like, well, I only really care about what this main event scene is. Like, what's Austin doing and what am I doing with Austin?
And then as you go into 2000, and I've watched it all back, you've got the similar sort of thing happening on Raw. It's really electric show, dynamic, changing. You know, Radicals are in there. They've got stuff going on. Then you've got Jericho involved. You've got Triple H is now the one on top. The Rock's coming back. Austin's coming back. Kane, blah, blah, blah. SmackDown is essentially part 2. It's essentially what second week of Raw is now. It's a really it's genuinely fascinating for me. I get very nerdy about it, and there are some people who are going to be so uninterested in that. But for me, this is catnip.
I mean, it is for me too. I mean, to bring it back to this angle, this is, I think, the angle that this story needed. And I think it is definitely something that the new Judgment Day needed, because I, having watched it now for 2 weeks of them just being beaten up, have started thinking, like, are you actually good? I can't tell if this product is trying to tell me you're a force to be reckoned with, or are you just Pure Fusion Collective, but you wear more black? But now they've actually stood tall. I'm like, right, okay, you are smarter than that. You are smarter than the average bear. You can actually tear these people apart. And now I want to see Priest and Rhea get their revenge. And that's why, again, I come back to, I was surprised they didn't do this earlier to build up the anticipation of Rhea and Priest getting their hands on Dom and Liv and being the ones to stand tall. But we'll see what comes out of the pay-per-view.
We've got one more show.
The
pay-per-view. It's curious. Interesting.
Well, let's see what you thought of this segment and this show in the Ultra Chat. WrestleTalk.com/support. I mean, look, it's actually, someone's got it. It's Triple H maintenance TV. It's simple and logical, but it's not exactly necessary.
Right.
But like, if you have to make a new show 52 weeks of year, it is necessary in the sense of you have to make it, but it's not necessary that you have to watch it.
But also,
this is what it had the exact same thing with NXT.
Also, base level. Was this a bad episode of television?
No, but
exactly.
Well, this is what we talked about last week, didn't we? Which is that it's, as being an average episode now, because the bar is so high, this very mid episode just feels like, well, what's the point of this?
Well, but this is what, so for us, yes, and for a bubble, I suppose, yes. But when I posed that question, I'm thinking of the person who sat down on their Monday night, had their dinner, they've got a day of, it's the start of the working week. I don't like Mondays, whatever, and they're going to sit down and they're going to watch their episode of Raw with its 97,000 commercials and you know, maybe do a little crossword. Maybe they're tied in the flat while they're doing it. Did you have a good time? Probably.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe at that point, it does just feel like background work.
Right. And
as opposed to like appointment television.
And that's why every now and again you'll get a moment where put everything to the side and lean forward. Like I was leaning forward when it came to that Rhea Ripley pop when she comes out and gets a little headbutt, or that moment where Bron Breakker and Ludwig Kaiser are running around the ring at the same time, or the Wyatt Six's debut. There are those moments that make you lean forward, but at a base level, if you're making an entertaining maintenance show, I think that's a positive.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just that it's not a standard for TV anymore,
right?
Which is because we are now in an era where it's like you need to be bang, 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 bang every time, and you have to be appointment television. And at the moment, I don't feel like Raw feels like appointment television, but it can't always be appointment television.
Yeah. Or
it can't always feel like appointment television.
Although you get exhausted.
You can get exhausted.
Yeah.
I think the counter to that is, before we just jump into the Ultrachats, is if I was just average Joe watching this show, I don't know what my impetus is to tune in next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had probably from the previous week as well. Like, what was on last week's show? That's it. It's more habit than anything else.
I think they're trying to encourage you to watch the week after the show, the week after the pay-per-view, to keep the habit going.
Yeah.
More than anything else, personally.
Bailey here said, how can they be the most powerful couple in WWE history when they've only been together for 3 weeks and spent 2 weeks running from getting beaten down, lol. Hilarious writing in their promos. I'm going to guess that's
Liv and Dom.
Liv and Dom. Well, they're heels.
They're heels. They have that delulu. They have that arrogance. And one of them has a belt.
Which I do keep forgetting.
Yes.
James, using his moderator chat here, says, okay, waiting at the airport for my birthday trip to Los Angeles.
All right. Fine. Let me spill coffee down myself in fuming jealousy.
Somebody has to say it, but does anyone else find it weird that both Raw and SmackDown have the same top storylines? Top heel factions turn on founding members, become new versions. The original members destroy them the week before, and now 3 days apart, the heel stable does the revenge beatdown. Anyway, jam that jam, have fun at All In. Yeah, and if you build a lot of your shows around factions, then you are going to bump into a lot of the same sort of stories. Does love a faction. Gabriel here has been a member for 37 months in a row, said it was my birthday yesterday, so I spent Raw having a game night. Turns out I didn't miss much. Also, I kind of want the Terror Twins to win the tag gold.
I'll be pushing for it forever, but they're never going to let me have it. But happy birthday for yesterday.
Kevin here said, with the crowd chanting Yeet and We Want Jay, I was like, I guess the Terror Triplets is happening. A bit weird that he didn't come out, but it was okay. Also, I hope Punk is just isn't aware that they stopped doing red light, green light, and it's not actually it. We'll come on to the strap match
We will.
stipulation in a little bit. But yeah, like, this crowd reaction for We Want Jay and Yeet during the segment has not come from television.
No.
That has come from social media and interviews.
Which does beg the question, are we right or wrong about whether or not this audience are casual or not? Because often I'll see lines that I know because I'm online fall like a damn squib. But and so I'm like, oh, I guess these people are more just people watching on television. They go with the television stuff. And then we get a moment like this where it's like, oh no, a few of them are.
A few of them
Very
saw
aware, because you're right.
the Fanatics thing where Rhea Ripley was like, who else would you like to join? She's like, I'll just give you one word, Yeet.
Yeah. And then also, the Waffle House thing, the, fans running around with it. Oh, so Jay was like, I'll take it to Waffle House or something, like in a digital exclusive.
Okay.
But like, other than that one throwaway line right at the beginning of this, oh, so like Rhea's available, kind of all of that stuff, this hasn't been a part of television.
It's not really been like,
and I would
aside
like,
from throwaway lines that are just done to pop an audience, this is not. We have not been teasing that Jey Uso is going to be part of this storyline. I mean, actually, in fairness, no, I'll take that back because in fairness, he and Sammy have been saying they're going to go after the tag titles. They're going to go after Judgment Day. But then also on this show, they're not doing that now. He's going after the singles title instead.
Right, but like I think we'll see.
So in fairness, maybe it's something to do with that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pogo was here, said, I don't think I've stopped caring for a match faster than when Punk said, touch all four corners. I'm sure the match will be fine, but these two are in a blood feud, and you're going to end the match by whacking a post. If it has buttons and lights, I'm going to die. We'll go on to that in a moment. This show opened with Randy Orton, who came out to say, look, I just wanted this to be about the World Heavyweight Championship, but Gunther made it personal because he brought up my family. And I'm starting to think I might add in the made it about my family into my bin of tropes that I'm kind of done with. Cliches that I'm done with. Gunther comes out, who gets very, very good heat from this crowd, USA chants and the like. Kaiser tried to attack Orton from behind, but Orton disposed of him. But the numbers got a little bit better, got the better of him, and Gunther and Kaiser laid him out. So they kind of put over this that Randy Orton isn't the only one that can strike from behind.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to save it for the main event.
Okay. We got a recap of the Sheamus and Pete Dunne rivalry, and then Jackie interviewed Sheamus, who said that he still got lessons for these young Thundercats. It's a reference to a TV show that I watched when I was a child.
There you go.
So, of course.
I didn't.
No, because you're so young.
So I'm going to whack on the aircon.
You're young and vibrant aircon.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean.
Very demure, very mindful.
That brought us to Sheamus versus Pete Dunne, in which Michael Cole brought up that Sheamus beat Daniel Bryan in 18 seconds.
He certainly
for the
did.
world title at a stadium show.
Here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Yeah.
Which is one of those things where, like, Cole sat down, he's doing his research, he's putting his notes together for the show, he sees that when he goes.
It'd have been so much. I'd have popped more for it if he'd called him Bryan Danielson.
Of course you would have.
Yeah, because I'd have been like, oh, that's, it's not a dig or even a shout out. This would feel like, no, this is just character work for Sheamus here.
Yeah.
Dunne target the hand that he attacked last week. I really enjoyed the spot where Sheamus did a leaping knee on Dunne as he was doing his second rope moonsault.
Oh yeah, big time.
But I thought the finish of this was very clever because we got Pete Dunne attacking the hand, wedged the hand in between like the middle turnbuckle, and then,
as in like through the turnbuckle pad itself, so as to use that as a place to. Because obviously you got the little ring.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
And so then the referee sort of like drags him back to be like, oi, what you doing? You can't be doing that, mate. And in that, Sheamus rips his hand out the turnbuckle and he charges forward, hits him with a bro kick and gets the win. Thought it was a very, very cool finish to what was a very enjoyable match.
I did too. And there was a little part of me... I'm probably opposed to you on this. I don't really love Pete Dunne's joint manipulation fingery business because it doesn't look... You're not breaking his fingers. I know you're not. So.
Yeah, I think it works in smaller buildings.
Yeah, probably. But it just doesn't work in close-up television medium. But... when they're actually
when he used
getting...
to do a progress show, it's got like huge.
Yeah, and look in early NXT when I hadn't seen it before, and now I'm like, no, like logically it doesn't really, when they do that thing and then they like stamp on this elbow, that gets me, that makes me wince every time. But someone doing this, I mean, I guess that hurt a little bit, I suppose. But like,
it's Brit rest for you.
There you go. But when they get down to like grapply, punchy, whatever, Yeah, this one works for me, and I liked the ending. And there's another moment in the Bronson Reed match later on where we have essentially what feels like just pure rage leading you to win a match, which I quite like. So this was a good little thing. You know, Pete Dunne's off to NXT tonight.
Yep. And hey, if you like wrestling, unfortunately, not going to get it for about an hour. So.
Oh, is wrestling not also entrances, and wrestling is not also promos and storytelling, and story building?
I'm just saying.
Put your stopwatch away, granddad.
I'm just saying. It's a pacing thing. Got to a point when CM Punk came from his promo, I was like, are we going to get any wrestling on this wrestling show here? So we cut backstage. New Day, I say New Day were hyping up Odyssey Jones. Kofi Kingston was hyping up Odyssey Jones, who was also hyping himself up. And then he walks off stage left, and Kofi's like, hey, Woods, you all right? Like, you seem like really down on this Odyssey Jones. Is it because I brought him into the group and didn't tell you I was bringing him into the group? Is it because I took the mic away from you and talked over you last week? Is there anything to do with that? And was like, yeah, pretty much. Like, it's because you've been doing all of these things. I don't get it. And Kofi makes the point. It's like, hey, 10 years ago, like, I'm not trying to replace Big E. This is not about replacing Big E. But 10 years ago, we were put together as a group and we weren't given a chance to get over. And Odyssey Jones hasn't been given that chance either. So I thought it would be really cool if we were able to bring him under our wing and try and use our veteran instincts to try and help him get some TV time. And was like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I've overthought this. Like, it's carrying getting in my head. It's all cool. Let's do the trios match.
Yeah. I really liked this a lot. And then I liked the match later on as well, because do you remember last week I was sort of waxing lyrical about how Woods' performance made me feel like Kofi was being too much. This was the opposite of that, like the polar opposite of that, where in this instance, Kofi was our POV character, going to his friend and being like, I'm not an idiot. Like, I've seen you be a bit, like, not vibey.
Yeah.
What's the crack, mate? What's going on? And, you know, sure, it's with all the subtlety of a mallet going into a...
It's got all the subtlety of a wrestling show.
Well, exactly. Thank you for finding a much better metaphor. But it's not subtle whatsoever, but putting no finer point on it, being like, I just feel like you're trying to replace Big E, our mate. And Kofi's like, whoa, not even at all.
Yeah.
Them having that conversation and then having Woods come around to be like, God, you know what? Like, because we do this sometimes. We get into our heads. There's an insecurity in any relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or even a familial relationship, where we tell ourselves a narrative. And if that narrative goes left unchecked, it becomes the truth, whether it's the truth or not. So the fact that Kofi then is like addressing it head on, Woods is responding to it, such that later on in the match, which we'll get to when we get to it, Woods, I think, acts like a bit of a baby.
He does.
So it's exactly the opposite of what happened last week. This was really, really good performance and writing. Well done.
This is a storyline that I really have been on a roller coaster with.
Yeah.
There was a period of time where I was the only person on the planet that actually cared about this storyline and was really enjoying it. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, you need to get to the next part of this because we are not moving this story forward. Now I'm right back into it again, where I'm like, no, I'm really digging this. I think Woods is so good in this. Look, Kofi was great in this segment.
Yeah.
And Odyssey Jones is absolutely fabulous. So like it comes to the match later on, might have been sort of my favorite bit of actual like in-ring wrestling stuff on the show. We then got a video. We got a recap of Fanatics Fest and WWE touting their success there, which was massive.
I mean, apparently it took everything over. And we're not just talking like this was just your average fest. This was major sports, NFL, NBA, like the rest of it.
Huge thing for WWE. And for them then to be the most popular thing there is massive.
I always say that wrestling is the most popular niche thing in the world. Like there are so many fans of it, but you would never know that until you see it in physical form like that.
And those people would then be like, ugh.
Yeah, right.
Why are you into that stupid thing over there? We then got a music video for Bron Breakker, which was very, very cool. Called himself a genetic freak.
It was great.
We got a recap of Ivy Neal's heel turn on Maxxine last week. Then
do you know? Sorry, I just because you've said it, and then we're about to get to an Ivy segment. On the way home, from when I get the tube home, I go past a shop every day called Ivy Tile. They sell tiles. It gets me every single time.
So Ivy Tile was working out backstage, and American-made approached her to welcome her to the team. And Chad said they're going to finish their business with the Alpha Academy tonight, and then they're going to focus on the Wyatts. And we'll get to this in a little bit as well. So do you think this now we're done, American-made and the Alpha Academy? Like they beat them last week? I mean, the Ivy Maxxine thing didn't really get finished because they didn't really do a match.
I think it would be good to move them apart. I think that anything else feels like stretching out an already fairly stretched out piece of gum. I also really liked their little, because we are what American made like thing, which for me works so well as like jock heels, but also I can imagine at some point a babyface turn and me chanting that with them. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So like
almost like the We the People.
Yeah, they're set up so nicely now that I think they should just go off and be.
Yeah,
I think it's time to move on and let the Afro Academy be the Afro Academy. They're very neatly separated. It. You can have the name, whatever.
We got Maxxine Dupri versus Ivy Nile, but not really. They didn't really have a match. This was more to do an angle.
Yeah.
I said in my edited review that there was only one women's match on this show because there was.
I don't think the bell rang.
I think they did do a little bit of a match. I think they wrestled.
They did some stuff, but I don't think the bell actually rang because I was listening for it.
That's it. So like I said there was only one women's match in this card, but the comments were like there were two matches. You talked about the other match, which was Maxxine and Ivy Nile, and I was like, well, A, I didn't think it was a match. B, I actually forgot that it happened when I was writing out my review.
But like, I didn't, because she's my favorite wrestler, and I have to say, if I can, before we get into the actual bit, I thought Maxxine did some really good stuff in the tiny amount she was allowed. I really bought that she was really cross, and the Fisherman Suplex was great. The throw, everything was very tight. Often you can see it be very loose, especially with these people who not only aren't wrestlers but came in to be a valet, and they've then found themselves in wrestling. This was good stuff. I'm not saying it was Kenny Omega, but I'm saying it was good.
So this was, it was more of an angle than it was anything else. Because the Wyatts, they ka-chunked early, and Abby the Witch was in the ring. American Maid ran in to protect Ivy Tiles, and then the rest of the Wyatts jumped up on the apron. They all got into a big brawl. Left Gable on his own, and Uncle Howdy hit Sister Abigail on Chad. They will have a match next week.
Wait, all four of them?
No, just Chad and Uncle Howdy. That was
just Chad and Uncle Howdy.
So that's the match they announced later on in the show. Is next week it is the singles match, Howdy versus Chad.
That's your before the big show main event, isn't it? Like they always do this, where they have the sort of they don't do a pre-show anymore. They do it on the SmackDown.
Exactly. We've only got a 5-match card for the pay-per-view, so we're doing the other big matches on TV instead.
Yeah, there are pros and cons to that.
I don't mind it at all.
I've settled into it. I would like one more match on the main card, but also.
But then how am I going to know about Dude Wipes?
Well,
if you put another match on, I don't know what the latest flavor of Doritos is.
This is true. Sometimes when you've been shopping at Ivy Tile, you've got all your stuff ready for the kitchen. You go around the corner, you get yourself a nice jacket from American Made.
I'm quite excited to see this. It's going to be
me too.
Bo Dallas's first match in like 5 years. Yeah, and it'll be Uncle Howdy's first match.
And it really feels like a sort of not a coming out party, as it were, but a Bo Dallas that we remember from the Social Outcasts and Bo Leave and all the rest of it, and this Bo Dallas, they aren't the same person. Mm-hmm. They aren't the same character. They aren't the same entity. I'm not going to watch them to see them wrestle in the same way. This is going to be fascinating, especially because of the success of, I think, the Wyatt Six's debut match.
Yep.
What happens when the masks come off. Same is going to be here.
We got Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley cutting a promo that we spoke about earlier, and then CM Punk came out for a promo, and he talked about sports teams. I've not been here for 10 years. Hey, did you know that WWE's a hot product at the moment? Hey, do you know why that is? It's all of you fans. You've made this a hot ticket. I've not been here for 10 years. Really missed you guys. And then, Drew McIntyre's obsessed with me. Drew McIntyre comes out. I suppose we could talk about the match first, right? Yeah. So they're going to have a strap match at Bash in Berlin, which is what we speculated on last week. But within that, it's a WWE version of a strap match, which means that the stipulation is you have to touch all four corners in sequence to win the match, which I think, I'll apologize now, I'm going to use my swear here really early, fucking rubbish.
So...
And quite shit.
There are two sides of this. I don't disagree with the match, but there are two. I want to talk quickly about the promo first, because the way you've just paraphrased it, or rather portrayed it, is fair. It's like pandering CM Punk, and I've seen a few people online talk about how they just do not like that version of CM Punk.
This PG Punk is not doing it for me.
I gotta be honest with you, it doesn't bother me whatsoever, because it's still fun, and it's not really about this promo.
I know, but that's not what you want from CM Punk, is it? Sort of like being... Yeah, like that's not what I want from CM Punk back in WWE is, I guess this is just what he does now.
That's not what I'm feeling, though. That's what I'm trying to say. My is more. I get that that's how you guys feel, but sorry, I'm enjoying myself. That's it.
I guess, and I take that. I think for me, I feel nothing now,
which is fine.
But I don't think that is fine. It's CM Punk. CM Punk's cutting a promo, and I feel nothing.
I understand. I hear what you're saying. I think when it comes down to the matches and where it goes and what's happening, I think the meat is still there. It doesn't bother me, and maybe it will soon, but...
Yeah, all I'm looking for is just a little bit
more fire.
A bit of fire, yeah. And I still am into Drew versus Punk. Like, I am still, and I do think it is still on course to be WWE's feud of the year. I really, really have enjoyed it. I loved their SummerSlam match, and I loved the build for their SummerSlam match. I'm not even the person that's just like, oh, it's about a bracelet. Like, I don't mind that, because I think that is something that actually ties them two together. I also don't hate that it's a strap match, because I think thematically,
this is when we'll move on to the next part.
I think thematically that is a really good gimmick to put on those two. They are tied to each other, both figuratively and literally. It is almost like a bracelet. It is like they are going to have bracelets around their wrist. They are literally forced to be together. They can't run apart from each other.
They're tied together. Like they happen all year.
Absolutely. So it makes thematic sense. The four corners thing is absolutely lame.
Yeah.
We'll come on to that in a second. But like my thing with Punk is just when he comes out, like he was advertised for this show, and I knew what he was going to say, and it doesn't move me in any way. And I kind of think like is that what CM Punk is now? Just a guy that comes out and is just like, hey, have you noticed that we're a really cool company right now? It's not what I want from my CM Punk. I remember once when he returned to AEW, a friend of mine said, wake me up when he turns heel, because that'll be the when I get interested in him. And I was like, that's very unfair, because like, you know, we could do the babyface run here. We can, like, there's more interesting things we can do there before we just turn him heel. I am now looking at this 3.5 years into his return, or 3 years now into his return, where I am at the point where I was like, yeah, I am kind of waiting for you to do something, though.
You are correct that it is 3 years into his return. For you, I am going to point out again, because I feel like it's important to say, it is only like 9 months into his return to WWE. So like it's different for certain fans. If they're not AEW fans and they're just watching WWE, if they haven't seen what I've seen and you've seen from the electric promos and programs with MJF, or the stuff that was going on Collision.
With Eddie Kingston.
Exactly. Like even with Ricky Starks, like what we're seeing here is brand new for some people, and so they're still getting that kind of like, we've gone to our first WWE show since CM Punk came back, and we got to see CM Punk, so we're excited about that. So there's still a little bit of mileage in that, I think. That said, I do agree that at some point I feel like it would be nice to have some shackles taken off. I think that's where I'm like not as bothered by it as I think some people are. When it comes to the strap match, I think last year when we talked about Danielson and Starks in the strap match, I kind of shared that I don't really love them, and then that one was incredible. So maybe I've come around on them a little bit, and I love that, as you've rightly pointed out, the thematic nature of it.
Thematically, it's a perfect stipulation.
It's great, and I really like that, and I think it's been good that they've done that more often. They've kind of plotted it with that in mind. The Four Corners thing, Tempest upstairs was like insistent that I tell everybody how much he hates it. He's not even on the pod, and he wants everyone to know. But it's because I was like, specifically tell me why, and it's because it turns a blood feud into a mini game, and it is that it turns it into a game of Mario Party. It's like, which one of you can hit the light first, and
it probably won't have the light system of like the red light green light thing. I mean, it might
on the ring posts.
If it does, I will be stunned, because this feels like an actual cool company at the moment, and I don't think a cool company would do
wipes.
I don't think unless the delights are sponsored by someone,
right?
In which case then maybe they will have them, but this is a cool company now. Like, that was a lame company that used to put lights on ring posts. I don't think they're a lame company anymore who would do something quite so corny and naff. So I don't expect there to be lights. But the stipulation is mad in that these two hate each other so much that they're going to touch corners sequentially unless someone breaks up that, and then you have to start all over again.
And it becomes a tug of war, and it becomes it's a similar reason that I don't like an I quit stipulation, because so much of it becomes about the and this one will become so much about the reaching and the pulling, rather than the actual
wanting to beat each other up.
Yeah, and the moment of like, I have to tap out, or I can't physically respond to a kick out. I don't like Last Man Standings for a similar reason, because 10's a high number. Like, come on. That said, the people who are the people involved in this match? It's CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. And what did I say at SummerSlam when I was watching the special guest referee match? I was like, I would love to sit in a room with Punk, McIntyre, and Rollins talking about how they're going to put this match together from a wrestling psychology point of view, from a performance and a character point of view. I think they're 3 of the top people in the game. 2 of those are in this match. I think if there's any people who are going to take a corny minigame style version of a strap match and make it something worth watching, it's Punk and McIntyre. So I'm not enamored, but also I'm going to enjoy it.
I don't think it's going to be a bad match, but it is a lame stipulation for what is a cool feud.
And I also think it's a lame stipulation for a cool stipulation, if that makes sense.
That's true, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
This isn't exactly the dog collar match between Punk and MJF.
Right, but if it was just a strap match without the touching, I think we'd each be sat here like, great.
Great. Because that's a match.
Yeah.
That is a fight. There's someone in the comments here just being like, oh no, you're missing the point. You're humiliating your opponent because you're dragging their limp body around and touching them. I don't think that's humiliating your opponent in the least. Like, I think Tembo's right. It's a Mario Party game.
Yeah.
And I don't look at Mario Party and see that as a blood feud between Mario and Wario.
I can see the argument for the humiliation angle of it, but I don't know. The tap maybe we'll be proved wrong in the course of the match. I think
there's every chance. I think
these 2 wrestlers and this evolution of the company have earned an open mind. They've made things work before that haven't worked before, but
on paper,
it's different to practice. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see as the match comes out.
It could be that we'll get to Bash at Berlin and we'll be like, man, they really turned that around because that was a really lame stipulation that they just made work. But we could instead have just had a conversation where we're like, this is a really good thematic match and they're going to batter each other and then one of them will come out victorious after battering the other one to the point where they can't kick out anymore, which is what a blood feud needs, not a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Drew came out and they just said the same thing they've said in all their promos. We don't want you here. I've been gone for 10 years. I've got your bracelet. I want the bracelet back. This is why it means something to me. They're better off with me. Like, this didn't even have, like, this crowd were so unenthused by this. They didn't even pop for, like, the final line for it. And then they just played Punk's music and then everyone left.
That's happened a lot recently. I think the go home lines haven't landed, not even exclusively with Punk. Like, a lot of people's, there's a moment and they're like, oh, we pressing the play now? Now? Yeah. Okay, go. And it does feel awkward.
Well, he tried to do the Rorschach line from Watchmen, which he did do in, I think it was when he was in the Elimination Chamber, which is, I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me. And he did the line of like, I won't be attached to you, you'll be attached to me. And it's like, well, that's the same thing, mate. Like, you're both just attached to each other. It didn't have the exact same hit to it. And because they had just said the same things they've been saying previously, the crowd didn't pop, and then the music just played, then it ended. Yeah. And I was like, I'm still into this feud. I just think that they have been doing these verbal jabs at each other now since November last year. I'm ready now for that. They have said everything they can say. We now need to do something new with this feud.
That's why it's also, there's a little part of it that feels like we're on fast forward now because it's this and then Bad Blood and then we're done.
Yeah, it's October. By that point, they will have been feuding for a full year,
for 10
more
months,
or less. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Is it 10 months? Because I would have said.
I would say from January when he injured him.
He injured him, but they had their problems in December.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. That's true.
You're looking at, like, if you're saying November to be charitable, but I think it would be harsh. It is, say, 10 months, 10, 11 months. It's a long time to be feuding. I think they have said everything they can say about this feud now.
Unless they go to an extra level, but we'll see. We know they can do it.
Liv and Dom cut a promo, and then we got New Day and Odyssey Jones versus the Final Testament. Final Testament are the Pure Fusion collective of the men's division, in which they just cannot buy a win. And New Day and Odyssey Jones won when Kofi got worked over, went for the hot tag, and he tagged Odyssey Jones and not Xavier Woods. But it's not like he did it on purpose.
No.
He didn't tag Odyssey Jones in to annoy Woods. It was just the first hand he got to. But in Woods' mind, because it's everything else, he took that personally. And he had that moment where it was like, oh, So this is what I think it is about. But it wasn't that at all. Like, Woods barely did anything in this match. I think he hit the limit break elbow, and that's all he did in this match. But that's by design. So I thought the storytelling in this was really exceptional.
Yeah, I did too. And I also, because earlier it had been signposted with Kofi reaching out to try and get the hot tag and specifically reaching for Woods as well. So it wasn't just like he never was going to get a look in. They were trying to tag each other. It's just that the Final Testament overpowered him. And then when it comes to it, he literally is just on the same side as Odyssey Jones. He makes a jump, he gets the tag. Because that's how you do these matches. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. So if it was to take that personally, was pathetic.
Yeah.
Like, frankly, pathetic. And that's, again, testament to what I was saying earlier on. They've swung my sympathy away from him by addressing his concerns head on and then showing us in a very, again, unsubtle but clever way, you're in your head, mate. Yeah. And even at the end of the match, they get the win in no small part because all three of them work well together. You know, Kofi takes one out of the way, then you've got the elbow that jumps over the referee, hits the elbow, which sets up Odyssey Jones to be able to do his move. Yeah. Job done. The three of them have won together as a unit. So what's your problem, mate? I think this is really good. Also, have you seen the digital exclusive?
No, but this is what I was going to bring up.
Right.
So is this the Final Testament have said this feud's now over?
Well, Scarlett specifically has said, I think you need to let the New Day go, babe. Let's go and have a quick cuddle. Let's go and have a naughty cuddle.
Let's go and have a quick shag in the corner.
Basically, that is the summation of what she said.
So we're done now with New Day versus the Final Testament.
It feels like it, and that I think will be good for this to move away from and allow the New Day story to go to whatever it is next. Yeah.
Because it's fascinating in that it's a story that hasn't had an ending, and instead it's just started a different story.
Well, isn't that life? We never really have an ending.
That's why. And actually, that's why I'm saying it's interesting because usually within the world of wrestling, you tell a story, you end that story, and then you start a new story.
Yeah.
This has not had an ending, but that's by design. Because we're now just moving into this different thing here, which is Woods and Odyssey Jones and Kofi Kingston. But Woods is being informed by the story that didn't have a finish.
Which technically is the finish because Karrion Kross is, he didn't get the win, but he got the mental win. Yeah. It worked.
He didn't join his group, but he did split up the New Day.
So, and then maybe you revisit that. Exactly. Again, it's this kind of like big picture thinking.
Which I think is very interesting.
Yeah.
Bronson Reed took on The Miz again from last week. Miz Pierce revealed backstage that Miz asked for this match because turns out Miz is honorable.
He's got specifically one friend in the business, and that one friend got taken out, so he wants to defend his honor.
I've written here, honorable Miz is so unbelievable.
It's so funny because I believe him 100%.
This was a no DQ match, which I believe is Triple H's kryptonite. It was a glorified squash match, and Reed won. Went way longer than you'd think. And he hit the tsunami. He was going up for a second one when Braun Strowman came out and they had a stare down, and they're going to have a match next week.
I really liked this.
Me too.
I really liked it a lot. I thought Miz did his sort of flailing. The idea is he's gone for a no disqualification match because he's not stupid. He knows he wrestled him last week. That's really the only way I'm actually going to get the upper hand. And for a minute, he sort of did until Bronson Reed decides he's going to crack a kendo stick over his knee and then batter him into oblivion and hit a Death Rally driver on the table. That kick out at 1 that he did is what I'm referencing when we have regards to the Sheamus pulling off the rope and getting the bro kick. There was almost something like, I'm just really angry that you've tried to hurt me, and my pure testosterone and rage is what's going to make me kick out at 1 here. And that kind of made it almost believable for me. I'm not usually a fan of kicking out at 1. This is a rare instance where it worked for me. Unless it's early in the match and you've just hit a clothesline. In which case, kick out, like what you're talking about. But the fact that when he then went up for the tsunami, people start getting very excited. Well, this has worked, hasn't it?
It's gotten over.
There you go.
It's gotten over. Like when they was doing it like late last year when you had Wade Barrett going, the tsunami. That was getting over then as well. It's why he became my new tri-monthly push because he gets pushed for 3 weeks and then doesn't really get much of anything. Then 3 months later, we just do it again. But the big lad hitting the top rope splash will always get over.
And here we have an opportunity for the big lad to take on the big lad and really solidify himself as something. Because if he takes out Braun Strowman...
Problem is, I don't know where you go next. It'd be cool to put him in the IC title tournaments.
Yeah. You got to have... he needs to feel like a threat for people. It doesn't necessarily have to win everything, but like it doesn't even have to become the belt collector.
No, I actually think him winning the tournament and setting up Braun Strowman, the unstoppable badass,
Bronson Reed versus Bron Breakker.
Yeah,
You said Braun Strowman.
Sorry. Bron Breakker as the unstoppable badass taking on Bronson Reed, this unstoppable monster.
Yeah.
I think that's great. You put that on pay-per-view. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Sheamus cut a promo. Ludwig Kaiser approached him and said that he's going to have the main event with Orton tonight. And Sheamus said, hey, you can find me wherever you want and we'll continue our little feud. I thought this might have been a Bash in Berlin pre-show match.
Yeah. Probably in the IC title tournament, maybe.
Yeah, I suppose you could put both of them in the IC title tournaments.
And then close the feud that never really got a chance to get going. Neatly out of the way. Crack on.
Yeah, it's weird that we own, I'm not doing anything for Kaiser in the Germany show, huh? Yet, I guess.
The real German is...
Yeah, it's like the only one there that's actually from the country, but no, we're just pushing everyone else that's just from around the area.
Yeah.
The Unholy Union won titles. They won a match in 2 years.
They did.
Kathy interviewed Bron Breakker, who announced the tournament, and later on we found out that Jey Uso is the first person to announce himself for the tournament, which starts next week.
I thought Bron Breakker's promo was real good.
He's real good.
Yeah, real good. And he's got everything.
This idea that, beating people up is not my fault. People getting hurt in my match is not my fault.
I'm just doing my job.
I'm just doing my job.
I'm really good at this.
Yeah, I'm really good at this. I liked it a lot. We then got the Dom Priest angle, which we spoke about earlier. Judgment Day then cut a promo bragging about what they just did. And then we got the Unholy Union defending the women's tag titles against Damage Control and Pure Fusion Collective. Very good action in this. Really, really good. The crowd not responsive to anyone's entrance, but once the actual match started and it got going, they really, really got into it.
I know, the battle of the women's division.
Second?
That's the ballad of the women's division. This is what happens when you let them go.
Yeah, and it was really, really good. I thought the finish in particular was excellent because you had Shayna Baszler get Kairi Sane in the Kirifuda clutch, and then Isla Dawn hit the backstabber on Baszler while she still had the clutch on, and then Kaylee Ray did a swanton bomb onto all of them.
Who?
Oh, sorry, Alba Fire, right? Alba Fire did the swanton bomb, and she got the win. Pretty good. I thought it was a very, very cool finish. It's a match that you knew that they were going to win because they've already set up the tag match with the Powerbuff girls. Yeah. So it didn't really didn't matter in that sense. It was predictable, but the match was really good, so I had a good time with it.
I'm going to rattle off the women in the match. It was Io Sky, it was Kairi Sane, it was Shayna Baszler, it was Zoe Stark, it was Alba Fire, it was Isla Dawn. Plot twist, it was good. These are good wrestlers. If they don't get the opportunity to show it, of course they're not going to get a reaction when they come out. So it kind of was one of those things where it's like, I'd almost rather it had been a straight tag team match, and actually there'd been competitive divisions similar that we have in the US title division, and what we had with the Street Profits and DIY, who we spoke about yesterday had sort of been coasting around, not doing a lot. You can give them a good opportunity to showcase. It isn't just 2 minutes to do a quick keg stand, and actually these women can deliver.
Well, they did the straight tag match last week, and it ended in DQ. That's how we got the triple threat this week. It's not my fault he does it all the time.
I know.
I
look forward to Speed.
Pat McAfee is leaving Monday Night Raw for the time being. He'll be back in January, so he got a little video tribute package.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. I remember when he came back and we were a bit grumpy. And I've genuinely quite come around to Pat. I get it. It works for me a little bit because I think there's something about his just sheer enthusiasm that makes it feel not passive. It's almost like there's almost like a clinical neatness to Michael Cole's professionalism that when he's then screaming, I love professional wrestling at WrestleMania or whatever, it makes us all sit up and take notice. Pat McAfee just has that all the time. And I didn't get the telestrator at the beginning because it was being used for serious angles. When it starts being used for my silly soap opera angles, it does everything I want it to do. So overall, thanks, Pat. See you in January.
Yeah, he won't be missed for me. I'm not being serious. I tune him out mostly because it's not for me. It's not my style of commentary. I find him quite obnoxious, but I get that he's very passionate, and I get that's why people like about him. I understand that I am in the minority about it. He just strikes me as the sort of person. When I went to go see Limp Bizkit a couple of months back, because I went on my Todd, I was just trying to find an area to stand around, and what I sort of kept doing was sort of trying to move away from just drunk groups of lads
Yeah.
who are acting like twats.
Yeah.
And that is just what I see in Pat McAfee.
Mhm.
I was like, if I was going to a gig and I saw him and his mates, I would move away from them.
It's different strokes. I mean, I don't really vibe with the podcast version of Pat McAfee, but the commentary version, it works. Like, it's an interesting thing.
When he shouts "Fight Night," I was like, "That's the."
I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I enjoy the woofing even. Like,
that does my head in. For the most part, I have tuned him out.
That's fair.
And then our main event was Randy Orton and Ludwig Kaiser. You can close your eyes and picture this match beat for beat, and you would be 100% correct. And Randy Orton won.
Yeah. I would. They go off the air with them having a bit of a brawl, don't they?
Yeah.
I personally
Very mini brawl.
Very mini brawl. I think they were run out of time. I personally would have made more of the fact that Ludwig seemed to be really going after Randy's knee. Because again, they seem to be selling this like on the edge of history, potentially getting, the only person who's got more belts than him is John Cena and Ric Flair. He's on the way, and he could eclipse Triple H. He could go unquestioned second place. I would have liked them to maybe set up not an injury angle so much as like Kaiser's weak in the knee, because the point of Ludwig Kaiser is to weaken him up before they go and face the big boss.
Yeah,
that's the fraud of Gunther, even though fraud is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because we all know. But the fraud of Gunther is that he gets his lackeys to do his dirty work and then he goes in and batters you. But I would have liked a bit more of an angle here, a bit more of something that then leads us into next week where Randy's fighting through that. Because what do old men have problems with? The hips and the knees.
Well, also that, but the knee was a big part of the King of the Ring match.
Right, exactly.
So
it gave me the willies.
It's playing into that angle.
So maybe they will go in there. Maybe this was just a part of it. I don't know. And next week we've got the final angle before they go. But yeah, I was like, for me, it was like, a slightly missed opportunity here to really. To allow, I think it was because they went off air with them brawling. If they'd gone off the air with Randy in pain, staring daggers at Gunther, holding his knee, that would have been a bit different for me. That would have felt like, well, hello, where are we going with this?
I agree. I also think because it was such a little boppy brawl.
It was
it wasn't like a big fiery brawl.
There was no pace to it, was there?
Yeah, it wasn't like a fiery brawl. It was just like a. Oh,
well, also the last thing that happened before they went off the air was a little dink in his eyes.
But yeah, I thought it was a very skippable episode of Monday Night Raw, but that does not mean it was a bad episode of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, it was a perfectly watchable one.
Thank you to our wonderful Pledgehammers over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. Please do head on over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk to get loads of fun exclusive content. We've got a brand new exclusive episode of Survival Series you can go watch now. We'll be having the next chapter of our first... No, that's a bad way to phrase it, isn't it? We'll have the next part of WrestleTalk Extra be going up later on this month, where Ollie and I are going to be looking at Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe's rivalry in TNA, which I'm thoroughly enjoying.
For that for years, haven't you?
I have been.
Yeah.
And I've been watching Genesis 2006, which is the first
Before
episode
we came on air, he was fuming that he couldn't carry on watching TNA. Vintage TNA.
I did. I was like, do you know what? I kind of want to watch more TNA. But I've got to sit here and talk about the Judgment Day. So, but yeah, so we're going to be reviewing that, which we're going to like. And if you are heading on over to the WrestleTalk channel this coming weekend, we are going to be putting up our review of WWE Royal Rumble 2014, which was the first part of our Breakup of the Shield Patreon storyline. So you can head over there, check out what you can get if you head on over to Patreon. It's a little taster session, exactly. Also, if I can just do a quick little plug here. Do you know what? Actually, we'll do the patrons, then I'll go into my little plug. Okay. So, if you are one of our Pledgehammers at a certain level, you get your name read out on the show like these fine folk. Michael, Mark for Life, Plowman.
He stole Sue's van, Mr. E.
The Batsman, Nathan Batty.
Probably better than Kyle, Philip O'Reilly.
The man who wears the gold. The man recognized by SWAP Nation International as the 24/7 champion, our legend.
Mr. Moneybags, Rich Holt.
Daylight Robbery, Rob James.
Bebop and Rob Steedley.
That's the best name. Yo, Adrian, Rocky.
Der Farm General, Roman Dietrich.
Ross, Pooper, Scooper Cooper.
And Rue the Day, Rory O'Brien Kelly.
That is your Hall of Fame class for the 20th of August, 2024. Now, if I may do a little bit of... plug? Well, it's quite an exciting little plug, I think. This coming Friday, we're going to be doing our predictions for All In.
We certainly are.
Because it's All In weekend this weekend. We're all really excited about this in the office because we're going to Riot Cabaret, which, by the way, is the most fun wrestling show that you can go to.
It certainly is.
You're coming with us to Riot, right?
I am, yeah.
Because it's Rev Pro you're not coming to.
I'm having such a fabulous day on that Friday. I'm getting up first thing in the morning. I'm going to go get my hair did. Yeah. I'm coming in for our big day of fun. And then going straight to Riot Cabaret afterwards.
It's the most fun. I'm so sorry to say that it is hugely sold out. And so
Egg on your face.
And you can't get
We're going to have
tickets.
fun and you're
But
not.
if you are in London and you are looking for wrestling shows to go to, the next time Riot Cabaret are doing a show, do get tickets for it at the Clapham Grand, because it's the most fun night out. It's such a good time. Like, I love going to Riot Cabaret shows. And then we've got the Rev Pro 12th anniversary show, which they've now announced as well, the replacement for Stephanie Vacker, because she just couldn't finish those dates.
Oh, she had loads on.
For. She had so much on that she just couldn't do the dates that she was booked for. I can't imagine why. But they've announced Mina Shirakawa is going to be her replacement, taking on Danny Luna.
Girl.
Cutthroat Collective are going to be part of the show as well, so it is going to be an awesome night. Michael Oku versus Luke Jacobs for the British Heavyweight Championship. I'm so looking forward to that. And then on Sunday, it's All In. So we are like gearing up in this office for a very fun packed weekend. And we're kicking things off on Friday with our All In predictions. And we're not just going to do our All In predictions on our own. It's not just going to be me and Ollie doing the All In predictions live on the WrestleTalk podcast channel. We're going to be joined by Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer of Wrestling Observer fame here in studio to do the All-In 2024 predictions.
Are you going to play that clip of the time you called into their show? I think that you must.
Look.
I think that it's like when you're on Ant and Dec and they're like, oh, you met this celebrity once when you were little, and they show a really embarrassing clip of
Honestly,
like you singing at Cher and Cher's being very politely. This is your version of this is you meeting Cher.
Honestly. So I do get starstruck around wrestlers sometimes.
I've seen it.
Some wrestlers more than others. Like when I was at the Rev Pro show. Did I mention I went to that Rev Pro show a couple of weeks back?
I don't know. I was too busy. I was nose deep in Becky Lynch's book.
Meeting Dijak was like, it was awesome and sort of shaking his hand. And like Trevor Lee, and I was absolutely fine meeting them. Like hanging out with Jack Cartwheel. Absolutely fine. Like hanging out with Michael Oku and Nina Samuels.
Right.
But like
names everywhere.
But like Sapphire Reed was there, and I was a little bit sort of like, oh, I don't want to bother you. Like I don't want to actually get in your way. And I think she was a bit like, hey, you can say hi, it's fine. And I was like, no, you're busy. I'm sorry, I don't want to bother you. I had that moment last year when we were at the Defy show on the Saturday before All In, when I saw Brian Alvarez there. Because I've been a subscriber to the Wrestling Observer since 2005. And Brian and Vinny's reviews of TNA shows were like, that was almost my religion for a little bit, was like enjoying the adrenaline flush era of TNA through Brian Alvarez and Vinny V. Even though I loved TNA and I loved how sort of naff it all was, they hated it, and I kind of loved it through that. And they've been a huge part of like my sort of 20s and onwards, my journey, if you will. And I saw him at the Defy show last year. I've met Meltzer before, so I met Brian, and I was like, I don't know if I can go and say hello. And it reminded me of when Ollie at the first New Japan show they did in the UK, I shook hands with Minoru Suzuki and like Naito and all these people, but then he saw Kevin Kelly and got really freaked out because that's his favorite commentator of all time. And he's like, I can't go approach Kevin Kelly. I can't go and say hello to him. I had this with Brian Alvarez. So I've got this moment where I'm like, oh, I'm actually a little bit nervous about meeting Brian.
We all have our people.
So I can't play him that clip of me calling into Figure 4 Daily
and asking a question. Didn't it get shut down?
He completely shut it down.
That's why you have to.
I cannot play him that clip. He won't remember it, and that's fine. And that's okay. It's fine that he doesn't remember it. I'm not going to play it to him because it's so awkward.
I might.
I've played it on the Patreon show. On the Patreon podcast over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. I have played it on there, but I'm not going to play it. I don't think I'm going to play it to him.
Coward.
But anyway, Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer will be here in studio this coming Friday for our AEW All-In 2024 predictions.
Massive.
Should be a huge fun time. What a fun weekend we've got coming up.
So much.
WrestleTalk.com/support. Is that right?
Yeah.
WrestleTalk.com/support. Get your Ultrachats in. Ding, ding, ding. This is your last call. The Bad Apple Jam Tree Beard, who's been a member for 33 months in a row, said they did a digital exclusive where Scarlett told Cross to move on from this feud. He sowed the seed so he doesn't need to do it anymore.
I quite like that for Karrion Kross as well, as someone who just goes around and, is not necessarily the most effective at getting the wins and becoming the champ or whatever, but ruffles feathers. There's something that's a good character to have on hand when you're writing a show.
Particularly if you never win matches. You may as well do something else.
Exactly.
Will Campbell here said, hi
His
guys.
trophy cabinet is filled with broken factions from times gone by.
Hi guys. First, thanks for the chat this morning,
You're
Dan.
most welcome, Will. Always a pleasure.
Secondly, I'm glad the Wyatt segments continue to be great and well received. Also, Gable's selling of the Sister Abigail is absolute cash, and Ivy selling of the Wyatt 6 appearing was great too.
Yeah, and there was a clip, you won't have seen it, but there was a clip of Maxxine just yeeting away. She like fully ran. It was hilarious.
Rafael Garcia said, really missed the boat by not giving America-made America F yeah as the theme.
Maybe in Netflix.
Making the Punk match a bracelet on a pole match. Goodness, Paramount. All South Park stuff on Paramount Plus.
Oh, that'd be good.
And explaining to us that it was they're fusing it as the Pure Fusion Collective. Punk's is T-Swizzle. Oh yeah, we didn't mention that. Punk talking about his friendship bracelet. He goes, I know they're a Taylor Swift thing, but let's face it, I'm Taylor Swift for men.
Which is kind of true. Like, there are some people who really, really, really don't get Taylor Swift, and there are other people who have taste. And so, like, between... It's the magic of Taylor Swift. You either get it or you don't. It's the magic of CM Punk. Also, the Taylor Swift lore in wrestling is so real. Like, there's the Jeff Jarrett business.
Oh, right.
Where she was his nanny.
Yeah.
But also, or his babysitter. But then also, there's a picture of her in the sort of 1989 era, just like posing with a little CM Punk doll. That's long-term storytelling. That's LTST, baby. That's what's going on right there.
I have heard 2 Taylor Swift albums.
That's good.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah, I mean,
she's a good songwriter.
The first one is the one with Dorothea on it.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good one, yeah.
What's the album called?
I believe that one is Evermore, but it might be Folklore. She released 2 at the same time.
Yeah, so that one and the Midnight's one, because my wife got it on.
Midnight's is quite good. You want to listen to Red, mate?
Yeah.
Red's the vibe.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Astute Aberration here said, as someone who's only really seen Punk's worst post-WWE work post-WWE run, I'm with Luke. I really don't get it from either perspective yet. I don't know if I need to see him wrestle more, but nothing he's done so far has explained the derangement, and these promos haven't helped.
This is so interesting, because if you've not seen Punk is a mythological figure to most long-term wrestling fans, isn't he? Because he was the voice of the voiceless and the pipe bomb, and the first ripples of what then became AEW kind of were founded when he just bailed because he was sick of it.
He quit the biggest wrestling company on the planet because he was sick of the creative, even though
with nowhere to go.
With nowhere to go, and he didn't want to go anywhere. WWE made him hate wrestling.
Yeah, and that's why when we did Gripe Bombs, we talked about it, and there was a whole cheapness of him leaving AEW and just going back to WWE because he needed somewhere to work. I was like, well, he has previous of just leaving and not going anywhere, so I don't think he had to come back. But what's really interesting is if you don't know that, you've only seen him wrestle a bit of a Royal Rumble and this one match with Drew McIntyre, both of which were good showings. But if you don't know, you don't know. You can go back and watch the material. It's on the network. It's all good.
Yeah.
One of the only 5-star matches WWE have ever had from Meltzer, I believe it was. Like, there is a special magic that he holds that makes Ollie Davis cry. Mm-hmm. It's like it's hard to explain unless you lived through it.
Oh yeah.
Perspective is when hindsight isn't always 20/20. Like, sometimes you look back and you don't get it. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Well, you and I talked about this when we used to do the Collision reviews. It was like, and when Punk was the figurehead of that show, it was like, there is an intangible magic to CM Punk. And unfortunately, and I think that's why, like, I'm kind of down on some of the promos that he does now. When he just comes out and be like, "Hey, aren't we all great? Isn't WWE awesome? And you fans are great." I'm like, "Ooh, this has got none of that CM Punk magic to it."
The fire. I think I'm so intrigued to see where it goes, and I think he's going to do great work if and when he does turn heel.
Yeah,
because it's just, I know he can. So.
Well, Winter here said the PG Punk stuff online is a wild overreaction. His promo segments with Cody and Seth Drew pre-Mania were 2 of the best in wrestling in 2024. He's mostly excellent. Punk Drew and Cody Rock Reigns are comfortably feud of the year in wrestling, let alone WWE. Like,
so there you go.
Well, I agree. Like, I think this Drew. I've said it before on the show many times. I actually believe that Punk and Drew is WWE's feud of the year. I think it is the best thing that WWE have done all year. But it was on this show where I suddenly had this moment of like, I've seen it all.
But also,
but I think that could just be one show, and next week it'll be a completely different reaction. But in this one segment here, I suddenly had a moment of like, oh, you've said everything there is to be said here. And if next week is like, this incredible segment, I'll be like, okay, last week was just this aberration. And last week was just a misstep where they just added nothing to the story. And also the stipulation doesn't help, but that's not their fault.
If you flash back to the match at SummerSlam, there's the moment where he's not doing the GTS because of the bracelet and having the fight with Seth, and that's got that kind of like almost like wrapped CM Punk, like that kind of like, so that is baked into the character. It's never too far away from the surface. And I do think they could maybe have lent into that a little bit more with how this promo had gone. And maybe they still will, especially if we're going to lead to Bad Blood. You're going to want, for Hell in a Cell, you're going to want that viciousness. You're going to want that violence. And so there's a lot to be played with. But then when we do go into a feud with Seth, a feud with Cody, I don't know. He's going to bring it back at CM Punk.
Of course it is. Because that's the magic of Punk.
Yeah.
Also, on the note of that Hell in a Cell match, because of this did not get over in the news, I was being sarcastic when I said it was the one match type he doesn't want to do. Because that was a joke about that was the press conference thing that he said where he's like...
the Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. I don't want to be Homer Simpson and pop my head around the corner and be like, oh, by the way, I was being sarcastic. But a lot of people just thought I took it seriously.
Ron Burgundy, don't read this chat.
I'm not going to. I've seen the warning, so I'm not going to. But thank you, Mr. Toff, for your Ultra Chat there and being from Memberg for 19 months in a row.
It's related to the Monday Night Wars.
Certainly is. Because the final of that is over on Patreon right now. So you can go and watch the final episode of that right now over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. The real Double J here said, no spoilers. Just want to give you lads and the team behind you your deserved flowers for another fantastic season of the Monday Night War. Love the three-man dynamic and banter. If people want to be cool like me, pledge $5 today to see the finale early and support WrestleTalk. Well, there you go, lad.
Thank you,
and
Jack Sherritt.
And Stephen here has been a member for 27 months in a row. Said, let's go, lads. Stephen Starbucks here. No spoilers, but Season 5 Monday Night Wars. Maybe with DLC. Also, I can do Chad Baseball's voice for America. Has that episode gone out?
What one?
So that's the definitive wrestling RPG that we did over on Chaotic Neutral.
Yeah,
has that gone out? Is it? Oh, I didn't get the notification that it had gone out.
Yeah.
That's my Chad Baseball.
I see.
That was the character that I played. He is a US spy sent from Newcastle to infiltrate America, but his mission was complete and he's come back, but now he was so ingrained he now just believes he's American.
Great. Do you know my character? So I played oh my god, what's it called? The wrestling RPG on the one you did for CBW.
Which is... Oh man, I can't remember what that's called now.
By the way, played it over on Oxventure, and my character that I had there was Matt Finish.
Very nice.
He was a young upstart wrestler coming to you for NXT.
My next one I'm going to be doing is our werewolf.
Great.
So werewolf is very aware of himself.
Very good comedy.
Master Nate here said, not really related to anything. Are there plans for a music channel in the WrestleTalk family? Would love to hear y'all's opinions.
Don't give this man more work, because he will take it. All right?
Mike did say to me a couple of weeks back, because if you weren't doing WrestleTalk, what would you do? Like, if you just decided, I'm done with this now, I'm going to go forge my own path. So what would you do? I said, I'd start a YouTube channel about new metal.
Yeah. Everyone's got a niche.
Yeah.
You got to lean in sometimes.
And that is what I would do.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy talking about it. And Rob Seeley's been a member for 25 months in a row, said, I love my Patreon name. What do they do with Odyssey Jones? Big meaty men slapping meat four-way with Braun and Bronson. Love you guys. Jam that jam.
I think you keep him in the tag moment for now. I mean, sky's the limit with every wrestler, really, as long as you book them properly. So, who knows?
And Jason Wells has become a member. Thank you very much. We have ended the poll. 53%, 40% thumbs in the middle. So that's 53% thumbs up, 40% thumbs in the middle. That is about what I would expect it to come in at,
Mm-hmm.
But that's all we've got time for on this show. We'll be back on Thursday with the AEW Dynamite review, which is coming from Cardiff Wheels. And then we'll be doing our review of that on Thursday. And then on Friday, we'll be here in studio with Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer to give our predictions for AEW All In. And then on the Monday, we'll be reviewing All In full. Thank you all so much. Stay tuned to the channel. Please do press the subscribe button, give us a little thumbs up, leave a comment down below. I've been Luco and DAD. That has been Dan Layton, and Jam That Jam.